Information in the audio story regarding school nurses and mental health that I found surprising is that school nurses get very little training in mental health. This was surprising because as a former elementary school teacher, I saw a variety of mental health problems in my students as well as students in other classrooms. And we as teachers were even asked to fill out forms for parents so that they can take it back to their pediatricians. So the fact that these school nurses who are considered the medical professionals don't get adequate mental health training is surprising, and it makes it seem like there's a gap in the system that needs to be filled. I didn't really find anything surprising regarding the video about diagnosing mental health before kindergarten because I go into a pediatrician's office with the expectation that they will provide me information for preventative care, so I can minimize damage to my child. In regards to the article about children's mental health, I found it interesting that parents aren't aware of the resources they have through school alone. But now that the article's been put out there, hopefully parents take advantage of it. I personally do feel that schools have a responsibility to assess mental health of their students because that's where students spend the majority of their time. And it's like their second home for them, at least that's how I felt growing up. They eat there, they socialize, they learn, and they play. And sometimes students really do have behavior that's different at school versus at home for a variety of reasons. So it's important that parents and teachers have that open, transparent communication between one another so that tracking changes in behavior are easier to identify. Strategies that can support students in the classroom would be teaching mindfulness training, as our textbook stated. This encourages children to focus on current thoughts, feelings, and sensations. If students are able to recognize and acknowledge how they feel and what they're going through, they may be able to get the appropriate guidance on how to handle or cope with it. Things that can be done to help address mental health issues in school-aged children is to talk about it more with students so that they're educated in mental health. The more awareness there is, the less taboo of a subject it becomes, and the more problems or issues can be addressed and taught to cope with and or solved. I mean, can you imagine how much better off adults would be if they learned at a young age how to cope with what they were going through in a healthy, productive manner versus medicating through drugs or alcohol abuse? I'm not saying that everyone goes through those coping mechanisms, but some people can project or internalize, which both of them are not healthy or productive. I also think teachers should have more direct training with mental health because they're the ones in the thick of it all. They're the ones who see and interact with the students daily, so if they can identify problems, they can teach how to cope or refer to school psychologists or nurses and hopefully solve a problem or issue before it gets worse. Educating parents is another branch that needs to be addressed. If parents are aware that they can also teach or reinforce what the students are taught in school, they can create some continuity or a bridge for students and what they learn at home and at school. This is really interesting because I was even talking to people that I worked with because my background is in psychology, and I felt like my students, they benefited more when their mental health was better. They performed better when their mental health was better, when their anxiety levels were down. So if we can teach them that in the classrooms, if teachers are taught how to identify and trained on how to help, I mean, it can give them life skills, which, I mean, that's what they go to school for, is life skills and to learn. I'm super interested in hearing what other people have to say because this is something that I've been talking to people about, and I'm glad that it's being brought up in this class. So I'm looking forward to seeing responses.